Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and I welcome all of you back to another Chris Chan Health Quickie reading. And today, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to explore one of the slightly more talked about aspects regarding Chris's general health, because whether you want to say this actually qualifies under the category of health is absolutely up for debate, considering physically we're talking more in detail about. And now it comes in the form of Chris's hair. So, and as the quickie is basically going to tell us from the beginning, soaked with grease and rapidly falling off, Chris's hair is one of the many indicators of his unhealthy lifestyle. And as we spoke about many times before, ladies and gentlemen, there are so many things about Chris that his lifestyle is causing, whether he wants to admit to it or not. Now, the only other things you probably need to know is that this is at Chris age 33, and his hairline is already receding, and to be honest, I can't really, start complaining or anything like that, because I don't know if you can see, but my hairline is already, quite far back anyway. But I put this down to just things like, it is not necessarily down to stress, just rather down to sometimes the magnitude or the weight of things and how long I stay awake. And I had issues regarding stress before in my life, and well, it's also gotten to the point where it takes a lot longer for my hair to grow back. But if I go bald before I'm 30, I'm perfectly fine with it, because for reasons we're about to get into, my hair may be thinning, but that's besides the other issues, because I still am able to look after it, which is not what I can say about Chris, because what you see here is Chris aged 34, a whole year basically later. And outside of other things, it looks as if just Chris is just deteriorated, and it especially consider the fact that you could basically absolutely perfectly make the outline of Chris's crown just right here. And yeah, soaked with grease and rapidly falling off. So the condition, and this is Chris's hair in all its glory pre-Tonga, which I suppose it looks greasy owing to probably the shine of his hair, and the fact that it just sort of curls in not a particularly... It looks matted a little bit as well, despite it trying to be curled. Especially round the... Okay, so that's definitely grease just round the ear. It might also possibly have knits in it as well. Well, depending if just these lines of light are just whatever. Chris's hair has never looked good. For most of his adult life, Bob served as his barber. The result was a predictably amateurish, uneven cut, which served as the perfect accompaniment to his clown's shirt and social awkwardness. His refusal to regularly bathe, which leaves his hair greasy and unmanageable, hasn't helped. His hair has entered something of a plateau for many years, as even when he does take a shower, his hair's appearance virtually remains the same, as evidenced by his 2010 video demonstration. Although, what I must say as well, unfortunately for those who are wondering as well, is that, remember, Chris is not Asmongold. And I think even Asmongold would refrain from saying that, how could you go days without actually bathing? Because I could not do that, ladies and gentlemen. And that's just, I've never actually gone a full 24 hours without actually bathing. That's just completely out of the question, and I don't understand why Chris I don't know what it was about Chris's life that ever thought to himself that, you know what, maybe I don't need to shower today. It's not even as if Chris was financially destitute even when he was on welfare, it was in a bid to save shampoo. But there are just some things you just don't neglect, because how much do you think it would cost Chris to actually get things, surgically removed from his body because of his, what happened? It's a surefire way of contracting leprosy with things like this, including the state of his house. Switching shampoos hasn't helped. In his early 20s, Chris used Solsen Blue for dandruff issues, then switched to Head & Shoulders to assist with his love quest. He shifted to Axe brand Freeze anti-dandruff shampoo and conditioner when he became a Tom girl. He changed it again to Garnier Fructus shampoo and conditioner. He also used Aussie Sprunch hairspray because it keeps my hair poofy and smells of candy. If his photographic record is anything to go by, nothing seems to have worked. First-hand observer Catherine thought it looked like straw. Chris, however, believes that his hair looks just fine, and has always been defensive about his hygienic habits. Where are they? You tell me. He also had no problem with his mother's styling. During the first Casey phone call, he enthusiastically, while pretending to be liquid, praised said haircut. Oh, come on, I bet his mom probably cut his hair, and I think it looks good on him, actually. I like his haircut. I would probably get my haircut that way in the near future. Chris not even trying to ashamedly admit this, and again, Casey knew fine well this is Chris anyway, so there you are. And also, in 2016, Chris told Arthur Spatchcock that he thought his resembled Sailor Neptune. You be the judge. No. Transgender hair. For most of his life, he kept it short and didn't alter it significantly. But when he began exploring a transgender identity, Chris started growing his hair out. And also started bleaching his hair. Chris is that... You know what, actually, what's crazy is that it's nearly been a whole 12 months since I first bleached my hair to platinum blonde. And even though it's not platinum blonde anymore, although absolutely once my hair grows out again, I'm actually going to possibly do this. You know what? Yeah, you know what? That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to grow my hair out again, and I'm going to get it... maybe I'll get like a couple of boxes of platinum blonde and get it spruced up once every 3 months again, especially as the summer's coming, the spring is coming back in a matter of weeks, so should be good. Chris's natural hair color is a chestnut brown, although early photos from his childhood show that it was paler at one point. He seems to be dyeing his hair himself. Based on his unprofessional results, the highly visible brown roots seen in pictures suggest that he did not enlist an aid of a professional stylist, which is something that I did when I got my hair first, bleached. But you know what? That's how that is. Chris's hair is also evidently curly when it's long. He may have done it himself with a curling iron, but Chris is far too lax in his personal grooming for that type of styling regimen. An October 2012 Facebook profile revealed that Chris had grown his hair to his shoulders, and for the next couple of years, it remained at approximately this length. Which almost makes Chris almost look like a taller Mr. Potato with Hannah Montana's wig on it, but I'm not going to be too mean about it. I mean, although it must be said, Chris has never particularly, seemed to, smile naturally on camera, which always has the air of making him look relatively uncomfortable when he's actually doing something, as though he sort of knows that he feels he looks a little bit ridiculous, but never carried this thought process further to thinking that he could look better than what he does. You know what I mean? It's there are some things I'm a little bit too critical of Chris over, but at the same time, you know what? Without any real push, it wouldn't have encouraged Chris to have basically done any of the stupid things he's done in his life. For better or worse. Chris has become resolutely opposed to cutting his hair, seeing it as essential to his tomgirl/lesbian identity. In May of 2011, Barb forced Chris to let her cut his hair. This resulted in Chris calling Barb a bitch. He had to wear a wig for a while. He also saved a clump of hair clippings and wore it around his neck in hopes that it would grow back faster. This was supposed to be the year of me. I was making best social progress with my Mary Tyler Moore hairstyle, with better self-confidence gone in a snip 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 of my mother's claws. I also have retrieved the hair clippings shortly. After the tragedy, gathered them in a clump, wrapped the clump in a plastic wrap, put in a plush satin-like baggie, attached it to a necklace, and I am wearing my clippings as a charm, prayerfully promote quicker hair growth and recovery. Right. Chris sometimes likes to accentuate his hair with a headband, in order to cover up his bald spot, probably. Even before becoming a tomgirl, he admired his girly anime wings, to the point of incorporating them into his comic. At the Pride Festival and GameStop attacks of 2014, he wore a pair of striking blue and pink My Little Pony tassels. Sometimes he wears ponytails. He dyed his hair blue in 2015 for the OmegaCon cosplay. Of course, he again failed to bleach the hair beforehand. The result is that his hair gradually turned to a sickly green colour. But then also the way my hair turned out after the semi-permanent hair colour kind of makes me look like Sailor Neptune. More like Sailor in Neptune if you ask me, but yeah, I can tell you're already just telling me to get on with it. Sorry about that. As of 2020, the green colour has finally begun to fade, showing that Chris's hair is now very grey. Hair turning grey at a relatively young age is a sign of poor health, or getting the short end of the stick when it comes to inherited genetics. This can be clearly seen in a photo posted to Twitter in May of 2021, of Chris posing with his coronavirus vaccination card. When he was sighted in early May of 2023 in Midlothian by Weens, after his release from jail, his hair appeared to have returned to its natural brown colour. By the end of the month, however, he had dyed it again, this time to a brighter teal colour, probably because Chris knew fine well that, again, his hair was, for what little time he was going to be having his hair left, because, yeah, absolutely, I mean, Chris actually does look quite old in this. Although his smile looks, with his rotted medallion, it is noticeably becoming grey. And Chris still even has My Little Pony toys just in his background. Hair loss. Chris's encroaching baldness has done little for his already uncomely appearance. Since hitting his late 20s, his hairline has been receding very quickly. When confronted in the mailbag 17, 25 and 28 about his obviously thinning hair, Chris asserted that he was not going bald, and he was untroubled by this. When it goes, and if I do go bald, I will deal with it that when I cross that bridge, he declared. In videos taken of Chris at Fridays After 5 event in 2010, a bald spot was seen starting to appear at the back of his head. I'm very, I guess I say I'm pretty fortunate to say that this has not been evidence in me, nor do I do expect it to happen probably at one point, but I probably expect this sort of thing to happen in my mid-40s, like at least 20 years from now, not when I'm in my late 20s. You know what I mean? By 2014, at 32, pictures showed that his hairline had receded dramatically in just a couple of years, and his hair was more poorly managed, looking even more thin, wispy, and unkempt, if that's remotely possible. While his hair is long, it has simply stopped growing on the front half of his scalp, creating an extremely bizarre effect. His attempts to brush a few locks forward to do little to hide his constantly growing forehead. Catherine claimed, also in 2014, that it was halfway back on his scalp. The bald spot can clearly be seen in a photo of Chris with the Prater team in October of 2020. And we'll just see if we can get like a quick picture of this. Seed pack. Well, yeah, it's receding like much further back. So yeah, we can see that's just sort of how that is. And actually, that's even, you can even see like the bald spot in the back of his head as well. So that's just while it's there, I suppose. It should be noted that if one alters a photograph of Chris to remove his bastardized bangs, and his hair almost looks exactly the same as it did before 2013, slowly thinning and as greasy as ever. In 2016, this saw a rapid acceleration of Chris's receding hairline. Cole Smithy seemed to begin shaving his head regularly around his early to mid-30s, so the timing seems almost about right for Chris's male pattern baldness to follow suit. Chris's ever poor hygiene and increasingly gross neglect of his remaining and now green mop, like locks, certainly do not help. Chris's current hair is less that of a transitioning female and more of a Doc Brown mixed with seaweed. A popular theory among trolls proposes that the baldness is a physical indicator of the stress Chris claims they put him through. Realistically, however, Chris just drew an unlucky ticket in the genetic lottery. Photos of his half-brother Cole Smithy show that Cole lost his hair up front relatively early in life as well, and Bob showed signs of hair loss too. Ominously, inactivity, poor diet, illness, and stress are well known to accelerate the balding process. In addition, there is a strong correlation between the man's age with the eventual extent of the baldness. The earlier it begins in life, the less hair will eventually remain, which does not bode well for Chris's Tom Girl dreams. In recent times, Chris has taken to wearing a cap or pulling his hair forward to cover his receding hairline, and possibly to mimic various anime characters and drawings he's seen of attractive women doing the same thing. It really doesn't do his appearance much good, and yeah, as well, and this is again, this is his hair like dyed teal in 2023, and almost a year ago, but you can even still see the fact that it's... Now, I don't necessarily don't necessarily look down on people who wear caps in public or who do this because they are like embarrassed about, maybe a lack of hair, but it is what it is. You know what? Again, I'm not really gonna hold myself, accountable for how Chris wants to dress. That's his style and whatever you may say. Body and facial hair. Chris has never found body hair attractive, on himself or anyone else for that matter. This is probably connected to his hatred of men and their bodies. Seems reasonable. Not. And it began long before he became a Tom Girl. In 2008, he confessed that shorts are okay, but I don't like to show off my hairy legs. A strange Yu-Gi-Oh card shows him dressed in the costume of a female character, but deeply embarrassed in part because the dress exposes his legs, which he depicts as covered with hair. He also claimed that facial hair to most women is a turn-off, which is his autistic way of saying that he thinks beards are ugly. Consequently, early nudes of Chris show that he shaved his torso and pubic regions. It is... Oh god, you could even see that boulder spot from here like it was like the crater on Mars. It is telling that part of his costume meant to throw off the trolls included a goatee, when he needed to reclaim his identity. He potently shaved it off for the camera within 2 weeks, without shaving cream or even water at the very least. After becoming a Tom Girl, he put even more effort into removing his body hair, at least initially. He told Jackie, "I have been experimenting with body hair removal systems. I tried waxing. I had difficulty, only a little pain. I could use some help on getting the hang of it. Then I tried the as seen on TV smoother way. It worked some, but not so much. Got a rash on my leg from the effort. I would not recommend that product." And lastly, which removed the hair, or which removed the latter, a hair remover shower cream, Nair brand Shower Power Max, to be specific. It worked great, but I either used a bit too much on left, or left some on longer. This was last night. I had worse pain on the rashed leg, and newly rash spots on the other. on the right side of my belly, near the button, and on both of my nipples. Why? This is why you read instructions, so that you don't apply painful hair removal creams directly onto sensitive parts of your body. The pain was excruciating. See? I was lucky to find comfort and fall asleep with a few dreams. The areas still hurt somewhat, and I will heal with sexier legs to look forward to. It's a blessing neither of my arms were pained from the experiment. The pain was equivalent to a harsh sunburn. I would have been more comfortable with waxing in comparison. On this classic 1 to 10 scale, waxing was a 2, the SP max was an 8.5 going on 9 with the extended searing pain. At least my arms, legs, torso and pubic are in sin hair and really smooth. Chris, this to Jackie by the way. And and by the way, this is also meant to be depicting Chris with extremely, with hairy legs, but also not meant to depict the fact that Chris, again, wouldn't even know how rulers worked to save his life. Or that Chris went out of his way to just do writing for the box underneath the artwork. He also said that he given himself a Brazilian. And a Brazilian, for those not in the know, a Brazilian wax consists of the removal of all pubic hair, something Chris has clearly desired for a long time. Despite Chris's efforts, photos throughout 2013, 14 and 15 consistently show that, on the face at least, whatever deliberatory measures he was taking were an utter failure, as his facial stubble, his 5 o'clock as he calls it, is always apparent. As with every aspect of his life, his laziness thwarts his dream of looking like Britney Spears. Really, Britney Spears, what he thought he was going for? And Chris with his visible stubble and... Why didn't Chris just thought about, like, I don't know, maybe putting his hair a little bit further over his forehead? Maybe that would have, like, done something different. Hair mail. Chris told Cassie, the co-founder of Solitude Girls, that his mother had recently cut his hair and he had several locks of his hair so all the Solitude Girls could have some as a souvenir. He even... Yes, by the way, this was a real thing that happened. He even went to the trouble of wrapping each individual lock in plastic along with a certificate of authenticity signed by the Big C himself. Chris's faithful fangirls couldn't resist this offer. Due to the Mexican Postal Service, it took several months for the hair to reach Cassie. When it finally did, it was a shock, or perhaps it wasn't. Cassie described his hair as being greasy and having an odd odor. Evidently, Chris's hair is so filthy, the Mexican Postal Service, which regularly unknowingly ships countless pounds of cocaine, marijuana, and other illegal narcotics per year, had trouble dealing with this supposed biohazard. Fortunately, this violation of United States Code, Title 16, Chapter 4, Subchapter IV 1203A4-7, did not cause any national or international incidents. Alleluia. While Chris promised 200 locks of his hair, only 23 were ever sent. Chris included a letter to Cassie, in which one side of and Chris's version of the Spanish on the other. Each side had a Solitude drawing, but the Spanish side had Solitude in a sombrero. Yeah, this was, again, a real thing that happened, and that's a lot of hair that Chris shoved into a bag and is probably cloaking in its own oil. Ew. You know what? No sooner did he probably send it to Mexico than I'm surprised that then President Bush decided not to just jump on a plane and invade Mexico to get it back. And finally, just like your gallery of Chris and his hair, some of it like fan shots of like Chris legitimately going bald. Other things as well from like Chris, again, from like just this, pigtails, Chris looking about as ridiculous as any human being has ever looked in it. I mean, Chris does not even look as though he understands what he's doing, and probably understands just dangling a bunch of rocks from him is not a good look. Outside of the problems with his hair. Chris's hair actually somewhat growing back as he seems almost to enjoy the fact that he's going to be spending the next couple of years in prison, but there you are. Then this is Chris coming out as well with slightly... Okay, so Chris's hair looks like it's actually somewhat improved, or at least grown back a little bit in recent years. And that's pretty much about it. Yeah, so for what they are worth, ladies and gentlemen, I think this was just a very interesting experience because it's why on earth Chris thought it would be a good idea to, just go periods without showering is one thing, and also for the fact that, for someone who doesn't actually go to work and somebody who actually has all the leisure in the world to actually create works of art, even a comic book, you would have thought a lack of stress would have meant that Chris would have known better than to look after his own body. But, like with many other things, the path of least resistance. Avoid doing things that are just simply too easy to avoid, unless they're absolutely necessary. In fact, you know what? If Chris was on, some life-changing medication, it's the sort of thing that... Chris would only ever really impartially be motivated to do something outside of any gain is something that he probably would have been told was a matter of life or death. So if somebody was to say to Chris that you could contract leprosy if you let your hair just literally grease up, soak in, use it as a mop for the bottom of your oven, then Chris would have done something about this long ago. But again, why Chris never thought, you know what? I'm putting too much thought into this. Moving on. And I cannot wait to sort of you guys again in the next video. And just remembered, L'Oreal, because you're worth more than Chris could care about his hair. Bye-bye.